So last week, as we read about Rudra and the appearance of Rudra, Bhadra asked to do a little summary of Lord Shiva. So what I've done is put together a little review, not only of Lord Shiva, but of where we've come thus far in the description of the creation. So I'm going to use the text and switch over to that so that we can see what that is. This is, oh, let me do the speaker. There we go. Srimad Bhagavatam, April 2022, lessons 3 and 4 review. But what I'm going to do is go all the way back to the Bhagavad Gita. And this famous painting shows the spiritual world, the pool of desire, and the material world with Brahma and the banyan tree. So this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, texts 1 through 3. Krishna explaining to Arjuna. It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. If you're not speaking, please remember to put on your mute. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. And there surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So remember from the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the very first verse, Janmadya Yataha. Everything comes from Krishna. This is the Vedic definition of God, the source of all energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate. His first expansion is Srimati Radharani. Of course, Balaram is another expansion. He expands unlimitedly. But for this particular purpose, describing the mundane, material, external energy, we're starting with the male form and the female form. And Brahma Samhita explains that the external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, that's spiritual potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. So Krishna's first expansion is Srimati Radharani, male and female, for the purposes of creation and expansion. Srimati Radharani, just as Krishna is the source of all the Vishnus. First there's Balaram, then there's the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. That Sankarshan expands as a second quadruple expansion. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. That Sankarshan is Mahavishnu, who glances over the material nature. Similarly, Srimati Radharani expands herself for each one of the expansions of Krishna. First as the gopis in Vrindavan, then as the queens in Dwarka, then as the goddesses of fortune in the Vaikuntha planets, and then just as Krishna expands himself as Mahavishnu, who glances over the material energy. Srimati Radharani expands her female form into the form of Durga, who is the female counterpart. This deity here is in Navadvip. His name is Hari Har. Hara is a name for Lord Shiva, and of course, Hari is a name for Vishnu. So Hari is black and Hara is white, and he's a combination. So it says, just as milk is transformed into curd or yogurt by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither the same as nor different from its cause, that is milk. So I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. So when Mahavishnu glances over material nature, he impregnates material nature with the living entities. And in that work, he does it in the form of Shambhu. Mahavishnu transforms by his glance into that example of curd or yogurt, which is actually milk, but not milk, and therefore interacts with material nature. Lord Shiva and Durga are married in this world, and they also expand themselves. Lord Shiva expands himself as the Rudras, and Durga expands herself into so many different forms of material nature. So this brings us to this. Everything is based on desire, where the living entities go. So we've been in this part of the material world since time immemorial, rotating in the samsara of different forms of bodies in the banyan tree described in the Bhagavad Gita. And no one can know where it began, where it ends. It's all entangling. And we're hearing about Lord Vishnu's instructions to Brahma and his initial creation of populating this entire section. So now we'll begin from the texts. At first, he created the four Kumaras. And because his duty, Brahma's duty, is to populate the universe with the living entities who have fruitive desire, he asked them to propagate so that they could expand the population in the universe. Being spiritually inclined, they refused. He became angry and expanded out of his eyebrows the form of Rudra. And the Rudranis, their wives, expansions of Rudra. But they started to perform the act of destruction immediately. So he asked Rudra to stop and perform penance. That's where we are in the narration. And Samapriya, if you can pick up now, we'll begin with this verse.
Okay, but I just wanted to mention that we often see that form of Lord Shiva in meditation. This was an instruction from Lord Brahma to perform penance and meditation, so that his anger would be subdued and he would wait until his time was called for in destruction. Also, another point, when we saw that graphic just before this slide, desire. So it's not only the desire of the conditioned soul, it is the desire of Krishna for the benefit of the conditioned soul to go to experience these things, to purify his existence so that he will be ready to return at one point to his pure consciousness. Okay, so now, hello everybody, Hare Krishna, welcome back to this Transcendental Sangha. And we will start today with Ian reading, if you would.
Alibo, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
Hare
clear,
Krishna,
thank
everybody.
you.
Okay. So Srimad Bhagavatam 3:12, 21 to 22. My chair continued. Brahma, who was empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thought of generating living entities and begot 10 sons for the extension of the generations. Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulasta, Pulaha, Kratu, Bigu, Rashista, Daksha, and the 10th son, Nada, was thus born. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The whole process of the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation is meant to give the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead. Brahma created Rudra to help him his creative endeavor. But from the very beginning, Rudra began to devour the whole creation, and thus he had to be stopped from such devastating activities. Brahma therefore created another set of good children who were mostly in favor of worldly, fruitive activities. He knew very well, however, that without devotional service to the Lord, there is hardly any benefit for the conditioned souls, and therefore he at last created his worthy son, Narada, who is the supreme spiritual master of all transcendentalists.
Thank you. Let's go on now with Tisha. Thank you very much.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Krishna. Hi, everybody. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:12-23. Narada was born from the deliberation of Brahma, which is the best part of the body. Vasishta was born from his breathing, Daksha from a thumb, and Burgu from his touch, and Kratu from his hand. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Narada was born from the best deliberation of Brahma because Narada was able to deliver the Supreme Lord to anyone he liked. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be realized by any amount of Vedic knowledge or by any number of penances. But a pure devotee of the Lord, like Narada, can deliver the Supreme Lord by his good will. The very name Narada suggests that he can deliver the Supreme Lord. Nara means the Supreme Lord, and Da means one who can deliver. That he can deliver the Supreme Lord does not mean that the Lord is like a commodity that can be delivered to any person. But Narada can deliver to anyone the transcendental loving service of the Lord as a servitor, friend, parent, or lover, as one may desire out of one's own transcendental love for the Lord. In other words, it is Narada only who can deliver the path of Bhakti Yoga, the highest mystic means for attainment of the Supreme Lord.
Wow, thank you, Tisha. Just one recognition of this name, Narada. We say it all the time. I personally have didn't connect those dots before now. Narada, and we sometimes hear this word da, and it's not such a delivering method name, but it's Marada, so we can, it's such an exalted, wonderful thing. Everything in the Bhagavatam is just so pristine and wonderful. Any comments thus far, Patti?
No.
Oh, Tisha. Okay. First let's Sesha and then Tisha. Sesha ji?
Hare Krishna devotees. Obviously, these are special souls like Narada and the other 10 sons also. But is there a mention of Supreme Lord's involvement in, I mean, Brahma creates the body, right? He doesn't create the spirit soul.
No, of course not.
When does that deliberation by the Supreme Lord take place, where he places special souls like Narada in that body created by Brahma, or any of the other 10 sons also?
At the end of the entire Mahatattva's manifestation, when everything enters back into the body of Mahavishnu, then all the aggregate complete living entities with their subtle bodies and desires also enter into Mahavishnu. This was described by Narada to Vyasadeva back in the first canto. You maybe remember he was the son of a maidservant, and he came in contact with the Bhaktivedantas. He learned from them about how to do devotional service. His mother died, and he was doing meditation, and the Lord actually appeared before him and explained to him that you won't be able to see me anymore, but you've reached perfection. Narada then describes how at the time of his death, he entered into the body of Mahavishnu. And then when Mahavishnu exhales, then all the different universes also come out as the Mahatattva develops. And Krishna is so organized that in each universe, the living entities who are appropriately designed for that universe go into the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. When that lotus flower emanates up from his, you maybe remember, we also read that all those fruit of activity, the fruit of desires of all those living entities in his abdomen, cause the lotus flower to emanate from his abdomen up the lotus stem and create the birthplace of Brahma. And now what's happening is that they're in seedling forms throughout that whole area, and he's manifesting them through his body. So these are considered mental sons. There's no woman there yet to generate these sons. These are mental sons of Lord Brahma, specifically for propagating population, but as mentioned here, except for Narada. And Narada is considered the best because he actually propagates devotional service, which is for the ultimate benefit of all those living entities.
Also, another point, I think that this might help clear it up. This is the secondary creation. Brahma is involved only in using the facilities which are in their subtle form now, the Pradhan, and he's expanding upon them. This is all coming from Krishna. The soul is eternal. One moment, Bhadraji. The soul is eternal, so it's actually never created. We are all eternal. And okay, everyone mute who is not speaking, because I'm hearing some clanking. Okay, so that's an important point, that the soul is eternal. It is not created, but due to the tendency to want to enjoy and forget Krishna, he is properly situated in the material energy where he has to go through this whole thing to become reawakened to his eternal position. So
one point also was that there's everyone subsequent to the Kumaras is created by Brahma. But remember, we read that the Kumaras are both, and there was a question about that particular sentence in a previous verse. When I looked that up, it was described, and I put it on the forum. There's Vaikrita and Prakrita creations, or Sarga and Visarga. And because they were the first ones to manifest, the Kumaras are considered both the creations of the Supreme Lord and of Brahma, just to clarify that point.
Okay, but Tisha wanted to say something.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say this was my verse I thought about for the whole week, because I didn't really know what that word deliberation means. Like, he formed from the what is deliberation?
Okay, so our conclusion, when we were discussing it, Pati, you want to?
No, go ahead. You were
Okay.
the one that brought it up.
Well, the deliberation is the consciousness. One cannot have deliberation, which is one's situation, one's a mental attitude towards something without being conscious. So my conclusion was that deliberation is coming from the consciousness. That's the most essential part of Brahma, his consciousness, his being, and from that consciousness one can deliberate upon things, the way one looks at things consciously. Does that sound right? Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, Sesha, are you cleared up, or did you want to say something else to add to what we just discussed?
I'm cleared up.
Okay, okay. Bhaja, did you want to say something?
Hare Krishna, done with everybody. So Narad is not eternal, huh? He is also like regular like Jivatma.
Yes.
Special.
But he is special. He became special. In his previous life, it's described that he was in ignorance. But yes, he became special.
Actually, if you think about it, he was already special, because what 5-year-old boy wanders the world and performs great austerities and meditation? Of course, in the Bhagavatam, we see Dhruva did it, and other very prominent special souls. So he was not ordinary ever. And it was already, the Lord wanted him to be in that position. So he has been cultured for it, for I think many kalpas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go on now with Bhaja. Why don't you read? Oh, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Text 24 to 26. Pulatsi was generated from the ears, Angira from the mouth, Atri from the eyes, Marichi from the mind, and Pulaha from the navel of Brahma. Religion was manifested from the breast of Brahma, wherein is seated the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. And irreligion appears from his back, where horrible death takes place for the living entity. Lust and desire became manifested from the heart of Brahma, anger from between his eyebrows, greed from between his lips, the power of speaking from his mouth, devotion from his penis, and the low and abominable activities from his anus, the source of all sins. Purport: the heart is the most important part of the body, whereas the back is the most neglected part. When one is attacked by an enemy, one is apt to endure attacks from the back and protect himself carefully from all attacks on the chest. All types of irreligion spring from the back of Brahma, whereas real religion, the devotional service of the Lord, is generated from the chest, the seat of Narayan. Anything which does not lead to the devotional service of the Lord is irreligion. Anything which leads to the devotional service of the Lord is called religion. The power of speaking is called Saraswati, or the goddess of learning. And the birthplace of the goddess of learning is the mouth of Brahma. Even if a man is endowed with the favor of goddess of learning, it is quite possible for his heart to be full of lust and material desire, and his eyebrows to display symptoms of anger. One may be very learned in the mundane estimation, but that does not mean that he is free from all low activities of lust and anger. Good qualifications can be expected only from a pure devotee who is always engaged in the thought of the Lord or in samadhi with faith.
Oh my goodness. So I have a question, Bhadra. It says here that greed was created and it emanated through the lips. And it's interesting that all of these negative qualities were actually created as well. How can we understand that?
Well, living entity has the desires. As we said, that living entity has desires are there to, and first of all, we had a desire to enjoy, separate from the Lord, to be equal to the Lord. So the Lord has sent us here. And even though after the creation, when the annihilation takes place, we go in the body of the Vishnu, but still we are going with those desires. So Lord has to Brahma has to fulfill those desires. He's creating all different bad things also. He doesn't like it. And as so ultimately, besides that, he is also creating persons like Narad Muni to help the living entity to liberate. So it is all our desires. But ultimately, Srila Prabhupada is writing here that if we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, pure devotee of the Lord, then all this lust, greed, anger, all this can be diverted into devotional service.
Thank you. That's very important. We see also in the purport, it was said that Lord Brahma would not want to would leave the conditioned souls without devotional service because the whole thing would be useless. The whole thing would be useless. Okay, thank you. Let's go on. Seshaji, could you read the next one? And purport?
All right. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 12th Chapter, texts 27 through 29. Sage Kardama, husband of the great Devahuti, was manifested from the shadow of Brahma. Thus all became manifest from either the body or the mind of Brahma. O Vidura, we have heard that Brahma had a daughter named Vak, who was born from his body and who attracted his mind towards sex, although she was not sexually inclined toward him. Thus, finding their father so deluded in an act of immorality, the sages headed by Marichi, all sons of Brahma, spoke as follows with great respect. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This extraordinary immorality on the part of Brahma was heard to have occurred in some particular kalpa, but it could not have happened in the kalpa in which Brahma heard directly from the Lord, for the 4 essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Lord blessed Brahma, giving him lessons on the Bhagavatam, that he would never be bewildered in any kalpa whatsoever. This indicates that before the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, he might have fallen victim to such sensuality, but after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam directly from the Lord, there is no possibility of such failures. One should, however, take serious note of this incident. The human being is a social animal, and his unrestricted mixing with the fair sex leads to downfall. Such social freedom of man and woman, especially among the younger section, is certainly a great stumbling block on the path of spiritual progress. Material bondage is due only to sexual bondage, and therefore unrestricted association from man and woman is surely a great impediment. Maitreya cited this example on the part of Brahma just to bring to our notice this great danger.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Seshaji. Can you shed some light on this for us?
Well, one thing it shows is, as all of this does, the Rudras destroying right away and having to be asked to be stopped. This incident where Brahma got distracted, it's all a very complicated business, and I think it's revealing to us why Brahma prays for protection in undertaking this service, because there's so much danger of things can go wrong in different ways. It's not like just some magic wand fairy tale kind of situation, but it's dealing with real problems. And it's reassuring to hear Prabhupada's purport here, where he analyzes why this happened, or he approaches the answer to questions about why such immorality is shown. So it's a good warning, but it's also reassuring as well. And we just marshal on with our service as Brahma does.
Good.
And also that the sons, they question with respect, which I think is also an important lesson. Something may be suspect, but it's best approached with respect as opposed to condemnation, immediate condemnation.
Right, that would be nice. Give the benefit of the doubt. In fact, back to what you were just saying about so many distractions. We are dealing with so many distractions in the mundane world, being situated in the mundane world, in the modern world. So when Srila Prabhupada was present, it was very strict, and there was a complete surrender and acceptance of what he was teaching us. And we were all very young, in our 20s and 30s and even younger. So, and at the height of our desire to enjoy the material world. And due to his presence, the distractions were defeated because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy on us, actually. So I think that it's important for us to keep that traditional strictness in our own lives and encourage others, because that is the path back to Godhead. So, but it's not, go on.
There was a picture someone posted on Facebook recently of the Henry Street Temple in Brooklyn when Prabhupada was visiting there, where the audience is taken from the viewpoint of the altar back towards Prabhupada on the Vyasa-san. And all the women are sitting on one side and all the men are sitting on the other side, and there's an aisle in between.
Right.
And there were some comments being made that, about that. That's how things were when Prabhupada was here. It was pretty instructive illustration, straight lines down both sides with the space in the middle.
Well, I didn't see, I'm not going on so much on Facebook, but were the people who were commenting, were they in favor and appreciating the necessity to live a little bit strict and protect ourselves? Or was there, oh, that's not modern times, people don't know. So that's my creeping in. I just wonder what was the response?
I didn't read all of it. I just saw it briefly, but I think that the response was more that this is the way things were when Prabhupada was here. Wouldn't it be nice to be?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about that.
Okay, Vaishnavi.
So
When
Prabhupada was here, about 99.5% of the devotees were living in the temple. And 90% of them were not married. So the brahmacharis or men and women were, sitting in the rows like that. But now when we go as a family, children want to go sit only with father and mother. Where do families sit? I don't see a place where families sit together. And when I go to really ancient South Indian temples, this demarcation of men and women is not there. Families do go together.
Okay. So I can say something. We're getting distracted here. There are many very religious cultures all over the world. The Jewish culture, if you go to the Orthodox temples, or the Muslims, or the major religions, even I don't know so much about the Catholic Church, but this separation of the sexes during prayer, and the children go with the parents, either one. The children are free to go back and forth, I'm sure. That is a very ancient tradition that is noticeable in all religions. It's not just in our practice. And I'm very conservative. I think that it's better to err on the side of strictness and conservativeness, especially in the world today. If we think it's confusing to the children, then we have to make the children understand further that they are certainly not being rejected one way or the other, and they are free to wander. Children are always free to wander. There's a whole lot of children doing all kinds of things in our temples, wandering freely. So I would be opposed to. I go with that, the strict one. I saw a lot of hands going on here. Pati, is it okay we have this discussion a little bit more?
You're on slide 10 out of 25, and it's 11:35. So
Okay.
as you like.
Hold the questions. We better go on, or when we're finished, I'm going to be in trouble. So let's go on, and everyone.
I think it's a good point. If there are questions and it's a topic of concern, then
Okay.
It needs to be understood clearly before we go. Otherwise, what's the sense of it?
Right. Does anybody have a pressing question? Chaita, you had your hand up, and did you want to say something?
I just was appreciating Her Grace Manvantara's answer on the forum to what is describe the nature of sexual urge, and she just summed it up really nicely. She was saying that it's like fire. It can burn, but it can also be so very helpful, so very useful. So that's all. Jai Ho.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, shall we go on, everyone? Okay, I think we'll go on now. Thank you. And Jai Shri with her big smile, you please read next, okay?
Okay, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:12, text 30 to 32. O Father, this performance in which you are endeavoring to complicate yourself was never attempted by any other Brahma, nor by anyone else, nor by you in previous kalpas, nor will anyone dare to attempt it in the future. You are the supreme being in the universe, so how is it that you want to have sex with your daughter and cannot control your desire? Even though you are the most powerful being, this act does not suit you, because your character is followed for spiritual improvement by people in general. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, who, by his own effulgence, while situated in himself, has manifested this cosmos. May he also protect religion for all living. What's that noise?
Brihadnath Das, can you please mute?
Thank you. Purport. The post of Brahma is the supermost post in the universe, and it appears that there are many Brahmas and many universes besides the one in which we are situated. One who fills this post must be ideal in behavior, for Brahma sets the example for all living entities. Brahma, the living entity who is the most pious and spiritually elevated, is entrusted with the post next to that of the personality of Godhead. It is said that a supremely powerful living entity can do anything and everything he likes, and such acts do not affect him in any way. For example, the sun, the most powerful fiery planet in the universe, can evaporate water from anywhere and still remain as powerful. The sun evaporates water from filthy places, and yet it is not infected with the quality of the filth. Similarly, Brahma remains unimpeachable in all conditions. But still, since he is the spiritual master of all living entities, his behavior and character should be so ideal that people will follow such sublime behavior and derive the highest spiritual benefit. Therefore, he should not have acted as he did.
Okay, thank you. That is a very, okay, does someone have something to say about this? It's getting clearer now. Oh, Nandaji, thank you, Nanda.
Well, I don't have anything to help clarify it, because what I'm going to say is this very pastime is recounted differently in another volume of the Bhagavatam, because the whole thing about the sons questioning Brahma, those sons had to they were in the other, when it's recounted otherwise, those sons had to take birth because they criticized Brahma, and they had to take birth about 3 times. And one of them was their Kalanemi and the sons of Hiranyakashipu. So it's, to me, very confusing. But I guess what Prabhupada's saying here is that there's more Brahmas. So maybe it wasn't this Brahma that got confused, but even in the purports, Prabhupada says that this Brahma only thought of having sex with his daughter, but later in the other account, it says that he actually took on a form of a stag and approached his daughter for sex life and had to give up that body as a stag. So
I don't know about that. Which canto was that with the stag?
You know.
Well, as you were speaking, I was thinking that how the karma is so refined for every single action, everything. We thinking that, well, we'll do this, but it's not so bad, and we'll do that. Everything is being monitored by all the directions, by everything. We don't have that much free will. We can behave or we can disbehave, but everything is being watched. So we have to be very adherent to our behavior. That's what came up. That's what I was thinking as you were speaking, that this is Lord Brahma, the faultless, purest head of our Sampradaya, head of the whole universe, born from the body of Krishna. We're supposed to be taking a lot of instructions from him and from the things that he engages in. So one would be definitely to be very adherent to our behavior, knowing that there will be a reaction. And of course, it's not so easy. So we're mercy cases. So we have to really be humble and pray to Krishna to help us, because how can we defeat the material energy? Anyone else have anything to say about that? That's someone else had their hand up. All right. All right. Well, Nandaji, you want to continue reading?
Sure.
Oh, there's wait a second. Before you do, Chaita, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Nanda, for that research. And it's Canto 3, Chapter 31, verse 36, where Brahma is described as becoming a stag.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
331,
okay.
36.
Yes, I thought it was the third canto somewhere. Thank you.
Well, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
We are going to get to it. Okay, thank you. Nandaji, you want to continue reading?
Yeah, 3:12:33. The father of all Prajapatis, Brahma, thus seeing that his Prajapati sons, I'm going to start again. The father of all Prajapatis, Brahma, thus seeing all his Prajapati sons speaking in that way, became very much ashamed and at once gave up the body he had accepted. Later, that body appeared in all directions as the dangerous fog in darkness. Purport: ignorance is the cause of sinful life, or sinful life is the cause of gross ignorance. The feature of ignorance is darkness or fog. Darkness of fog still covers the whole universe, and the sun is the only counteracting principle. One who takes shelter of the Lord, the perpetual light, has no fear of being annihilated in the darkness of fog or ignorance.
Wow, big, very big. Thank you. You want to go on, Nandaji?
Sure. 34 and 35. Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds, as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifest from his four mouths. The four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest: the performer, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also, the four principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the four social orders all became manifest. Purport: the Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and they were first revealed to Brahma by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while Brahma was thinking of recreating the material world. Eating, sleeping, defending, and mating are the four principles of material bodily demands, which are common to both the animals and the human society. To distinguish human society from the animals, there is the performance of religious activities in terms of the social statuses and orders of life. They are all clearly mentioned in the Vedic literatures and were manifested by Brahma when the four Vedas were generated from his four mouths. Thus, the duties of humankind in terms of the statuses and social orders were established to be observed by the civilized man. Those who traditionally follow these principles are called Aryans, or progressive human beings.
Okay, so now I have a question for you, Nandaji, because we see in the world today, everyone wants to do away with all of these identifications that are written in the scriptures that are obvious. Everybody has different natures. And people are actually going out of their way to make it as though everyone is equal. There is no independent thought, and somebody who is even has the ability and the inclination to be a dentist well, somebody who wants to plow a field, he could also be a dentist. I mean, so how do we do this in the world today, where we see that all the foundation of the Vedic principles of the social structure are being absolutely challenged and being disintegrated in the world? It seems people want to disintegrate them. What do you think? And how should we deal with this? Just chant to get out, right?
You should change it, Sama. That's all I can say. But anyway, but it's a sign of, it's the result of sinful life and ignorance. Because Prabhupada said there in the purport, ignorance is a sign of sinful life, and sinful life is a sign of ignorance. Or ignorance breeds sinfulness, and sinfulness breeds what? More ignorance. So that's the thing. And that's why Srila Prabhupada would always stress, we or you or us or no one is ever going to get to change anything unless they change it from the root of all existence. Unless we understand the root of all existence is the Supreme Lord and offer our respects and loves and et cetera, and attention to him, that's the only thing that's going to change the root cause of the problem. By making everybody equal, or doing this and doing that and helping these people and helping those people, it's, and freeing Ukraine from the Russians and all the things that you'd like to do. It's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the bodily identification and the bodily concept of life. And unless that's eradicated through what? Distribution of books, education, Harinam, et cetera. And it does seem like quite a daunting task, but somehow or other, Prabhupada wasn't daunted at all by it. And, with full faith and trust in the holy name, did what he did, faith in the order of the spiritual master. So
Yeah, that was
if we could muster up 1/1,000,000th of a second of faith in Srila Prabhupada, and just proceed without getting depressed and oppressed and distressed and distracted by all of that, we'll be doing pretty good.
Whoa. Yeah. Thank you, Nandaji. I mean, there's so many things that could be responded to that. I got to ask it. What happens, you do the best you can. You do the best you can. You fight the battle as best you can. But there does come a time where, I guess it's hand over your book bag, or you do the best you can. But Prabhupada wasn't, you say he wasn't daunted. He was not daunted, because while this whole chaos was going on outside, we were hearing the absolute truth. So you're right, the path is there. Whoever wants to hear the absolute truth, whoever wants to be engaged in the goal of human life, then we are giving them the opportunity. You're right.
And we also have to have faith. That's just the thing. Who would have thought the Krishna consciousness movement would have spread the way it spread in this amount of time?
Yeah, that's quite amazing.
And Krishna's got his plan, and he's got his potency in his holy name. And therefore, I keep telling myself, there isn't really anything to be depressed about.
Nothing. Everything is the way it should be. Thank you, Nandaji. Thank you. This is very dynamic. We're going to go on now with Manvantara. Would you like to read this slide? Are you there, my darling? Manvantaraji? Yeah.
Text 36 through 38. Vidura
Right.
said, "O great sage, whose only wealth is penance, kindly explain to me how and with whose help Brahma established the Vedic knowledge which emanated from his mouth." Maitreya said, "Beginning from the front face of Brahma, gradually the four Vedas, Rik, Yagur, Sama, and Arthava, became manifest. Thereafter, Vedic hymns, which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matter of the resuscitation, and transcendental activities were all established one after another. He also created the medicinal science, military art, musical art, and architectural science, all from the Vedas. They all emanated one after another, beginning from the front face." Purport. The Vedas contained perfect knowledge, which includes all kinds of knowledge necessary for human society, not only on this particular planet, but on other planets as well. It is understood that military art is also necessary knowledge for the upkeep of social order, as is the art of music. All these groups of knowledge are called Upapurana, or supplements of the Vedas. Spiritual knowledge is the main topic of the Vedas, but to help human beings' spiritual pursuit of knowledge, the other information, as above mentioned, forms necessary branches of the Vedic knowledge.
Okay, before I want you to read the next one, but this is a really important point, I think, that everybody has a nature, and it's all the facility to fulfill your nature and engage in that kind of work is all there in the Vedas. It's not that we just have the spiritual knowledge, and how do we perform it? We perform it through our inclination to act in certain ways. That's a really important point, I think. And Manvatara, you're a nurse, you have the spiritual knowledge, you're performing your prescribed duty with the mentality of delivering this to others in your nursing field. So that's just a really great example of what is being said in this purport, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Manvatara?
Yeah,
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
According to your nature, and that might be different for someone else who
Right.
is a nurse,
Right.
according to his or her particular nature.
Yeah, and that's not liberation. It's liberal. It's being liberal and accepting of others and accepting of the differences of others, and that's very supportive. Because someone has a different nature, why should that person think that he has to engage, he or she, in the same activity as like someone else? It's not logical. That's why this varnashram is so important. Daivi varnashram, engage in your propensity to the satisfaction of Krishna. So thank you. Go on reading.
Text 39. Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas, and the histories from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present, and future. Purport. There are histories of particular countries and nations and of the world, but the Puranas are the histories of the universe, not only in one millennium, but in many kalpas. Brahma had knowledge of those historical facts, and therefore all the Puranas are histories. As originally composed by Brahma, they are part of the Vedas and are called the fifth Veda.
Okay, thank you, Manvataraji. Do you have realizations on this passage?
Not really.
Okay.
It's just the history is so profoundly unlimited. So.
Right. Thank you, Manvatara. Cheta, do you want to read?
Yes, thank you. Dandava pranams, everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam 3, 12, 40, and 41. All the different varieties of fire sacrifices, Sodashi, Ukta, Purishi, Agnistoma, Aptoryama, Atiratra, Vajapaya, and Gosava became manifested from the eastern mouth of Brahma. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion. And to learn this, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all these in systematic order. Purport. The nucleus of the four social orders, brahmacharya or student life, grahasta or household or family life, vanaprastha or retired life for practicing penance, and sannyas or renounced life for preaching the truth, is the four legs of religion. The vocational divisions are the brahmanas or the intelligent class, the kshatriyas or administrative class, the vaishyas or mercantile productive class, and the Shudras, or general laborer class, who have no specific qualifications. All were systematically planned and created by Brahma for the regular promotion of self-realization.
Go on reading the next one.
Okay. 3:12, 42 and 43. Then the thread ceremony for the twice-born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas, rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life, vocations in terms of Vedic injunctions, various professional duties in household life, and the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains. The 4 divisions of retired life are the Vaikhanasas, Valakilyas, Odambaras, and Penapas. The 4 divisions of the renounced order of life are the Kuti Chakas, Bhavodas, Hamsas, and Niskriyas. All of these were manifested from Brahma. Purport. The Varnashram Dharma, or the institution of the 4 divisions and orders of social spiritual life, is not a new invention of the modern age as proposed by the less intelligent. It is an institution established by Brahma from the beginning of the creation. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:13, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam.
Thank you. See, this is brings joy to my heart just reading this, that the differences that we find are specifically created by Brahma, and they are not to be ignored. They are to be used in Krishna's service. Anyone else have something to say about this? Do you have something to say, Chikta, about this?
Just that all of these orders are there for our benefit, for our process of self-realization.
Yes.
So thank you for your comment. And also, I'm thinking we could do an 1.5-hour class on all these different divisions of Varnashram. I had no idea they existed before I read this.
Yeah,
We could do a lot of information here.
Yeah, and you can really identify with it, and it's so pleasing to the heart that you are what you are. Okay, be the best you. Follow your own grain in serving Krishna. So now we have a devotee, Elizabeth, who is initiated by Jayapataka, and her name is Eka Radharani, and she was with us as Elizabeth before. So congratulations on taking that step of initiation.
Thank you so much.
Before we go on, Elizabeth, what's your name now?
Eka Radharani Devida.
Okay. Hi.
Eka
Before we go
Radharani.
on, I just wanted to take a minute. This was a wonderful painting, but the way the software works, it's hard to see. I blew this one up so that we can see that this is Brahma's body and everything is emanated from it. That verse, that statement that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here are the Kumaras. This is Rudra. This is Narada. These are the different mental sons of Brahma coming out of different parts of his body. It's interesting to note that along with all this population, also the Vedas manifested. In the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Teni Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. In other words, he is directly in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Vedas are eternal knowledge, freed from all the defects of conditioned life. So although we may have different opinions about different circumstances that arise, ultimately, the Vedas are considered the ultimate evidence by which we can determine whether something is good or bad, right or wrong, uplifting or degrading. And when we get into the areas of gray in society, that's when these things become interpreted and require a pure representative in the line of the disciplic succession. As we'll read in the next few verses, these sound vibrations in the Vedas are pure spiritual sound. They don't require adjustments and editing if the message is presented properly and clearly, as it is. That's why Srila Prabhupada always emphasized his Bhagavad Gita. So all these things are coming from Adi Guru. The first guru in our sampradaya was Brahma, and everything's actually created. Even the urges of our body, as we read earlier with that sex urge, there's all the different urges. They're all actually created in this universe as part of the complex banyan tree that we read about.
Wow. Thank you. One more point just to add on to that beautiful explanation, back to what we were talking about. If we are convinced and take great joy and satisfaction and pleasure, real pleasure, hearing this transcendental knowledge to the extent that we are absolutely convinced, then we can convince others. You know, we were talking about how we can change the hearts of these people who are misdirected. So if we're really convinced, it doesn't take much, because people will know if you're kidding them. People are sensitive, they'll know. You're there for their benefit. Thank you. Okay, now, Eka Radharani ji, can you please read?
Yes, Mataji. The science of logical argument, the Vedic goals of life, and also law and order, world codes, and the celebrated hymns Bruh, Prava, and Swaha all became manifested from the mouths of Brahma, and the Pranava, Omkara, was manifested from his heart. Thereafter, the art of literary expression, Unshnik, was generated from the hairs on the body of the Almighty Prajapati. The principal Vedic hymn, Gayatri, was generated from the skin, Jastup from the flesh, Anushtup from the veins, and Gayatri from the bones of the Lord of the living entities. The art of writing verse, Ariti, became manifested from the bone marrow, and that of Brihati, another type of verse, was generated from the life breath of the Lord of the living entities. Brahma's soul was manifested as the touch, alphabets, his body as the vowels, his senses as the sibilant alphabets, his strength as the intermediate alphabets, and his central activities as the 7 notes of music. Wow.
Thank you. Before we go on, there seems to be a little dogging in the background, also hopefully chanting the Vedas, but if you're not speaking, please mute, because then we don't have to hear these background sounds. Okay, go on reading, Eka Radharani.
The musical notes are Sha, Ar, Ga, Ma, Da, and Ni. All these sound vibrations are originally called Shatma, or a spiritual sound. It is said, therefore, that Brahma was created in the Mahakalpa as the incarnation of a spiritual sound. The Vedas are a spiritual sound, and therefore there's no need of material interpretation for the sound vibration of the Vedic literature. The Vedas should be vibrated as they are, although they are symbolically represented with letters which are known to us materially. In the ultimate issue, there is nothing material, because everything has its origin in the spiritual world. The material manifestation is therefore called illusion in the proper sense of the term. For those who are realized souls, there's nothing but spirit.
Thank you, Radharani, and congratulations to you on your taking that wonderful step and commitment to making Krishna consciousness your life and soul. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anita, how about you? Anita, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, nice to hear you.
Srimad Bhagavat 3.12.48. Brahma is the personal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the source of transcendental sound and is therefore above the conception of manifested and unmanifested. Brahma is the complete from the form of the absolute truth and is invested with a multifarious energies. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Maharaj. The post of Brahma is the highest responsible post within the universe, and it is offered to the most perfect personality of the universe. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead has to become Brahma when there is no suitable living being to occupy the post. He is therefore invested with multifarious energies from which all the demigods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are manifested. His transcendental value is not to be minimized, even though he exhibited a tendency to enjoy his own daughter. There is a purpose for the exhibition of such a tendency by Brahma, and he is not to be condemned like an ordinary living entity. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. That's also a very important instruction. Pati, can you say something about that instruction?
Well, what I'm getting from this verse and purport is symbolized in this wonderful image. We know that Brahma, after hearing, we read earlier in the purport that the attraction for his daughter could not have happened after this event where he heard the Chatur Shloki from Srimad Bhagavatam from the Lord, not only because he was benedicted not to be overwhelmed by illusion, but because he matured in knowledge by hearing that information and surrendering unto it. The whole idea of Vedic vibration, of spiritual sound vibration, is that by surrendering to the messages in those vibrations, one is elevated and actually transcends the three modes of material nature. Daiviheshu gunamai mamamaya dharatyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayame tam tarantite. So here, Brahma is not an ordinary living being. It says here, what does it say? Brahma is the complete form of the absolute truth and is invested with multifarious energies. He's a super powerful being, and we're hearing through the Brahma Sampradaya the exact knowledge commented on by other pure transcendental associates of the Lord. We're so fortunate. What more can be said?
Okay, thank you for that. That's beautiful. Okay, we're going to go on now with Ian. Would you like to read?
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 12:49 to 51. Thereafter Brahma accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. O son of the Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny.
Hare Krishna. He's having a hard time creating, it seems.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting. Well, thank you, Ian. Tisha, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:12, verse 52. While he was thus absorbed in the contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, two other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Two bodies came out from the body of Brahma. One had a mustache and the other had swollen breasts. No one can explain the source of their manifestation, and therefore, until today, they are known as the Kayam, or the body of Brahma, with no indication of their relationship as son or daughter.
Thank you, Tisha. Let's go on. Jayashree, you want to read?
Third Canto, Chapter 12, 53 and 57. The two newly separated bodies united together in a sexual relationship. Out of them, the one who had the male form became known as the Manu, named Swayambhuva, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of the great soul Manu. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, they gradually increased generations of population, one after another. O son of Bharat, in due course of time, he, Manu, begot in Satarupa 5 children, 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. The father Manu handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Ruchi, and the middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kardama, and the youngest Prasuti to Daksha. From them, all the world filled with population. Purport. The history of the creation of the population of the universe is given herewith. Brahma is the original living creature in the universe, from whom were generated the Manu Swayambhuva and his wife Satarupa. From Manu, 2 sons and 3 daughters were born, and from them all the population in different planets has sprung up until now. Therefore, Brahma is known as the grandfather of everyone, and the personality of Godhead, being the father of Brahma, is known as the great-grandfather of all living beings.
Hare Krishna, thank you. That's amazing.
Is there
Grandfather.
any explanation? Maybe Dhruva Maharaj can give an explanation of the mystery, Manu and
Of Kayam? No, it describes here that there was no one can explain the source of their manifestation. Until today, they're known as Kayam.
They did come from the body of Brahma somewhere, and he prayed.
Might
He
describe
was
someplace else that you know.
I'll look it up, but I don't know anything else. We did have one image here that.
That's why I was going to ask you to explain this, Pati.
Yeah, that this explains a little bit about the genealogy of the initial entities in the universe from Swayambhuva, Manu, and Satarupa. We have Priyavrata and Uttanapada, the 2 sons. Priyavrata married Bahishmati, Uttanapada, Suniti, and Saruchi, Dhruva, Uttama, and then they had their dynasties. And from Satarupa, also daughters, Akuti, Prasuti, and Devahuti, who married Ruchi, Daksha, and Kardama. Sati and 15 daughters were born from Daksha, and all these were given to different sages. So it just gives a nice image of the forefathers of the entire universal population, which brings us to, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Creation of the Kumars and Others. So Maitreya has systematically come to this point where now the universe is populated.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I just want to mention real quick, there was one reference that Vidura called Maitreya. He has performed many penance. Was that something like that? That was so, I thought that was really sweet. I'll find the exact one. So does anyone have any question or something to add to this part of the Bhagavatam? That's actually, here it is. O great sage whose only wealth is penance. Now, that is something to meditate on. And it's considered to be a wealth, that we renounce everything, and that's a wealth. So that is something to
Well,
contemplate.
I have a question.
Seshaji.
I have a question about Varnashram Dharma that was being explained. Earlier, Samapriya, you said that give the bead bag to not the bead bag, the book bag, somebody else. But practically speaking, without Varnashram, how much do we really know about doing anything other than just the necessity?
Good. And that is so important. These different, the Varnashram is our wealth, really. And in neophyte, we're only 50 years old. I mean, this movement in the West, the expansions of the Varnashram have not been manifest. We are thinking Varnashram means everybody has to have some land and grow food. That is not the extent of Varnashram. There is Vanaprast. So, and there is sannyas, there is brahmachari. We have to develop these aspects of the Varnashram so that when we have an inclination as we get older, to maybe step aside a little bit, to go deeper into other things that are manifesting within us, we have to do that. We have to do that to become pure devotees, to become purified. So in jest, I said, hand over the book bag. I'm an old book distributor, and I probably will not ever completely hand over the book bag, but there is another step that we who are in our 70s and in 80s now have to show the rest of the movement how to take up the renounced order, even if it's within Vanaprast.
Was that your question, Sesha?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I wasn't clear about where you were going with it because the answer came so
well,
quickly.
we okay.
It's almost like there's a guilt feeling to do what she's describing.
Right. Now, how fair is that? Not at all fair. That doesn't, because that doesn't enhance the Varnashram system, which was given to us in the Vedas, created by Lord Brahma, and the Vedas came out of his deliberation. That's his deliberation. Oh, Nanda,
that guilt, it comes from her previous Jewish life, that she just cannot give up that Jewish guilt.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me ask you, Sesha, are you Jewish? I asked one dear God sister one time, which is worse, ethnic guilt or ISKCON guilt? And she said, ISKCON guilt for sure. So, I mean, that's based on our lack of understanding what Varnashram is. Because here we are getting older. And first of all, I couldn't go out on book distribution the way I used to when I was a kid. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop preaching in some way. But there are other things that we have to be developing as we get a taste for this Krishna consciousness, and we should. And this is the Vanaprast stage. This is let go of things, chant, read, teach, preach. Let's make a not feel guilty club. Let's do it. Okay.
You wouldn't be able to be in it, Tom.
Oh, but now you have to be my cheering center. We have to not feel guilty about the things that are rising in our hearts. We have to fan them. We have to fan each other. Nanda knows. She knows all about my struggle with guilt. But anyway, Bajuji, yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandvat. Dhruv Maharaj Prabhu, in Daksha is the one of the Prajapati, 9 sons, and then Narad Muni was the 10th one. Now, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 6th canto, Daksha is, he's performing tapasya, and his Supreme Lord is giving him the wife, and he is having the Haryashvas and Salvashva. Now here, Daksha is married to the Swayambhur Manu's, according to the chart,
daughter.
Yeah. Can you clarify that little bit, please?
What was the beginning part? What is the confusion?
Confusion is that Daksha is one of the Prajapati,
Right,
and he performed a tapasya, and and the Lord himself gave him the daughter because Daksha is expert at the population.
right.
And Aswaj and Salvasvas where 10,000 and 1,000 sons were born. And here the Daksha is married to the
Daughters
that
of
child.
Swayambhuva Manu. So
Yeah.
the question arises, were those his only daughters, or did he have a lot, or did he have more? As a Prajapati, as a progenitor of population throughout the entire universe, I would assume he had a lot more wives than just the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu.
I see.
But we
Of
don't
course,
know
it-
because
Of
We'll,
course
we'll
it
read
comes.
later, I think, in the third canto. I haven't gotten there yet, but I mean, even different living entities, non-human, are born from these Prajapatis, some of them.
yeah.
So
Because
That's
Prajapati is a whole, it's not just a matter of having children. They're actually, their duty, their service, their nature is to populate, is to have, just like sometimes Prabhupada gave that example of small bugs. When they give birth to hundreds and thousands of them, not just not just a few, not just one or two children or a small litter like mammals.
Why we crying too much?
Okay,
thank you.
Radharani, do you want to mute if you're not speaking? Haribo. Okay. Thank you. Is anyone else have something that these are huge, wonderful topics that will encourage us to just dive deeply into this Krishna consciousness.
I think back to the
Nanda.
go ahead.
No, go
Okay.
ahead, Dhruva. Finish what you're going to say.
I was just going to revert back to the concept of understanding the varnas and ashrams more clearly. I think that Sama brought up the point that the movement's only 50 years old. When Srila Prabhupada first came to the West, it's not only not understanding the varna ashram system, it's also that in Kali Yuga, it's never going to manifest properly. That's for another age. So it's a confusing time, but I think what happened was that as Srila Prabhupada established a system of management of his movement, that the message that he gave was filtered through the different managers' understanding of what he was saying. And what that was then, when they were young and not mature, and what it is now, after everybody's become more mature, are different. So understanding what Varnashram is now compared to what we thought it was 30 years ago, and what the ages of 50 to 70 to 80 to 90 should be done, are manifesting differently than what everybody might have thought they were back then.
Right. Nandaji, thank you, Pati. That's very clear. Nanda, did you?
Just a comment on what Dhruva Maharaj just said. Yeah, and just like when we were in our 20s, we all thought we were just going to die like with a lightning bolt, and go right back to Godhead. And now we see it's a little different than what we expected. So it goes along with that evolution. Anyway, what I was going to ask previously is actually not about this set of verses. So I think I'll hold my question. It was on a previous set of verses, and I'll just go in a whole different direction. So I'll talk to you about it.
Bhadra? Unmute, Bhadra.
As far as we know that what Srila Prabhupada has said is come true, and it has come true. So in our lifetime, we might be not have the Varnashram system, but I'm sure he wanted it, and Krishna will fulfill that desire in the future, because this is going to go on for 10,000 years. So what we know, we are just the beginner, we'll be gone in another 15, 20 years. But there is a generation that's going to come. next generations will take up this, because that's what Krishna wanted to, through Srila Prabhupada, to have it done.
Yes.
So I'm sure the future generation will do that. Whatever Krishna will make it happen, because it is the desire, Krishna's desire, and it's coming through Srila Prabhupada. So, what we know, we just do our
Okay, well,
service,
on the other side, Bhadra, this is true, but here we are, and it's happening to us. So we can actually embrace it. And that can be also the beginning. You said we are the beginning devotees. So we can embrace this in a way that's most natural for ourselves, because there is a lot of confusion in this movement amongst devotees what to do. I remember one one devotee, he said, I want to build a community so that all the old devotees can come here and they can do deity worship. Now, I know what he's talking about. When you're 70, 80 years old, you kind of doing deity worship, going out to preach. This is not, he's not vegan. This man is 40, 30, you know what I mean? So we have to at this point, because we are the old ones, we are the ones who are being faced with what to do in our lives now, and to become freed from guilt about doing something other than what we did, that we have to help each other feel guiltless.
Well, we also know that whatever we have done, or whatever you all have done, is not in the vain. It's always in the spiritual life, is the progress. So of course it is, you invested your life in the spiritual life. So that is always a plus credit in your in individual life. So there is no loss anyhow. There is no diminution whatever we did.
No, I think you're right. There's no loss. But we have to embrace this change. We have to allow ourselves to continue to develop in Krishna consciousness, which perhaps will look different than it used to look. Not to help me out with this one. You know what I'm saying.
Jai.
All right. Well, let's give each other the strength. We continue chanting, continue reading, and we are going to leave this world. So let's leave in Krishna consciousness. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Everybody, Hare Krishna.
Jai. Balarama Sayatra Krishna Vasantras Ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.